Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about The Majestic, and this movie is directed by Frank Darabont, and it came out in 2001, starring Jim Carrey, and I really enjoyed this movie, and the way the plot is handled and the way things are presented, I also really enjoyed, because on paper it can be a little uncomfortable or like something you've seen 100 times, but the way it was handled, like I've said already, I thoroughly enjoyed, and it just knew exactly what it wanted to be and went with it. And I'm not saying that in a way that it was self-aware. I'm saying that in a way where it wasn't distracting. Like, this is a drama, and there's also romance in it, and all those elements are just handled so well. And the movie's also 2.5 hours long, and I didn't feel the runtime at all. And I was just into the story. I was liking the characters a lot, and it was just a very enjoyable experience for me. I enjoyed the music and how it was used, and I can remember parts of it right now. And it really does communicate what it wants to, and it doesn't feel manipulative in any way that I would consider to be distracting. It instead enhances these elements, and I thought Jim Carrey was great in the movie, and Laurie Holden, if that's how you pronounce her name, she's in The Mist, and she's also in The Walking Dead, and I thought she was great in the movie as well, and all of the acting is really good, and I noticed a lot of similar casting decisions from like all of Frank Darabont's movies, like Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and The Mist, and I'm familiar with the cast for like The Walking Dead, and how he used like a lot of the same actors, and there wasn't anything about the movie that felt forced or unnatural or super cheesy, except when we cut to the villain, which thankfully isn't too much of the movie. It's only a few scenes, but whenever he does show up, it's a little distracting for me, is because it just feels a little too cartoonish for the movie. And I know in movies like The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, the villains of those movies were kind of like that, but I feel as though they fit a lot better, and I had like a better understanding of who the character was, and also those two movies handled different tones a lot better than this film. I'm not saying that this film has no understanding of like having a consistent tone. It's just that when it came to the villains of those movies, it just fit better for me, and it's also like kind of personal preference as well. And because of that, it doesn't take off any points for me in those movies. This one, it kind of drags it down a little bit, and the third act, it was just like really cheesy and just too much for me. But that's really my only issue with the movie, and everything else was pretty great. I loved the journey of our main character and everything that he experiences and learns, and I think the characters in this movie are very strong, and that's what holds it up for me, is that it doesn't really waste any time, and you really get to know the people of this town, and they have so much character to them. Even if the movie doesn't like flesh them out like their entire backstory, you do get an understanding of who they are, or at least the ones that the film focuses on. Like, you get who they are. And I do kind of want to mention the plot of the movie really quickly. I know this also goes into like me mentioning the pacing, and it's basically Jim Carrey gets blacklisted for being a potential communist, because it's like in the early 1950s, and that's going on, and so he loses his job, and he gets drunk, and like gets in a car accident and falls into a river, and then wakes up and he's in a town, and everyone thinks that he's someone else. And in any other movie, it would take like forever to get to that point, or at least like halfway through the movie to get to that point. Like, for example, say King Kong from 2005, or Peter Jackson's King Kong, whatever you want to call it. In that movie, it took about an hour to get to Skull Island. And while I still like that movie, that is one thing that it does that I guess could be improved, especially for like a lot of people who just can't really stand that first hour of that movie. I know those people exist. I'm not saying that their opinions on feeling that way are invalidated, but getting back to the point that I was making, comparing those two movies, like in this movie, for us to get to that town that I mentioned earlier, it literally takes like no more than 15-20 minutes. And you're like there, and it's like a journey, and it's like I'm always enjoying it. And while watching the movie, it did feel like it was a film from Frank Darabont. It didn't feel like a studio interference with it or anything like that. And it felt like it was a story that he wanted to tell in the way that he wanted. Or like, I have no idea what the behind the scenes was like. Because I haven't gone through like any of the special features. I just watched it, streamed it, and that's the way I watched it. And unfortunately, streaming doesn't give you any special features. It did feel like someone's vision rather than like a bunch of people throwing in ideas and just forcing them into the movie. And speaking of that, there's literally a scene like that, and it's kind of funny. Like that's how the movie opens, and there's also narration in this movie, and I don't feel as though it takes anything away from the film. And from memory, I don't think there's a lot of narration in the film, and it only happens when it's like necessary. And when characters are reading things, there's like narration going on, and that was kind of an interesting choice. Or like writing, sometimes they'll narrate and like not speak out loud what they're writing, but just like think it and then they'll use narration. There's decisions like that that I enjoyed, and overall I really enjoyed this movie. I don't think it's as good as Shawshank Redemption or The Green Mile, but honestly I like it a lot better than The Mist. Like I would much rather watch this movie over The Mist any day, because I just didn't really enjoy that movie. I know that the only true way to watch The Mist is to watch the black and white version, but I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy the story anymore. And that's about all I have to say about The Majestic. It was great, and it's definitely a film that I will be watching. It's a little cheesy, but I don't mind the cheese. I don't mind the story. I love how things are presented, and it was just a great experience for me overall, and I will definitely be rewatching it. So definitely check this movie out whenever you get the chance, and with all that being said, I'm going to give The Majestic an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of The Majestic, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for The Fly, the original from 1958, so look forward to that. But until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.